if God gave Charlie a choice whether he could come back or keep his legacy, he'd keep his legacy.
That's probably
That's what
true
his
too.
wife said, allegedly,
Oh, is that what she
in
said?
that
Oh my.
video clip. Yeah, that was a couple weeks ago. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah,
a
yeah.
that
He
was
would
a
keep it
thing.
back.
It's
That might have been the
interesting.
episode I was off. That might have been the episode.
Yeah, it might have been, or it might not just have been. I don't know that we even covered it that week when it went on because I
Okay.
find no such time, even with a 7 hour show, to cover such important Erica Kirk quotes.
Wow.
I'm sorry for her situation, and it's definitely convenient that Charlie Kirk is not here today speaking out every day against the Iran war and all the other stuff that's going on because he definitely held positions to the contrary. And that was before he started noticing, before he platformed Tucker Carlson as a headline speaker. That's really where they're like, we're not calling it off. You know, they might have started planning his hit in like June, July. They're like, hey, this guy's really getting he's off the reservation. And they needed APAC to, I'm sorry, TPUSA. You get them mixed up to control the under, 25 vote and these sort of things. And the polls have not gone in their favor, even with the assassination. Just think how bad it would be if Charlie was still there, reminding those kids every day that he had been duped and used. Oh, wait, where have we heard this before? It's like they used him as a front man to progress their agenda. Oh, Tanner Herzl had a project that did something like that. Only instead of a person, they used a whole group of people from the Bible. But anyway, failed atheist journalists for 100, Alex, was not the Jeopardy question we were asked there. So I'm going to move on. This next clip comes from Kim Iverson's show. It is defeating Jewish hate, and you have to be against anti-Semitism. So if you're not anti-Semitism, you're anti-Semitism, you might be a hateful person. So defending uh, the good name of the people of the Bible, I think, is essential. And defeating Jewish hate is something that Kim Iverson obviously specializes in. So she's going to talk about APAC and how they're decreasing Jewish hate with their actions in throwing American elections. Then we're going to, I know it might seem like it doesn't connect, but if you think about it, it just might. We're going to learn about the Trojan horse. We're going to learn about the
Well, it's a really
reframing
tough.
the reframing of a classic of Western history into maybe a more modern format. And it might also be a metaphor for using a not so foreign lobby to do the work of a foreign lobby without getting caught under the FARA Act. That's kind of like a Trojan horse. I don't know if we've covered anything like that in this show tonight, but there's no meaningful juxtaposition or why I would put this clip amidst these other clips that we're playing. It's just I wanted to tell you guys about the Odyssey's giant Trojan horse that they're shifting in there. In fact, the Odyssey itself, as released by Christopher Nolan, is a Trojan horse to change your attitudes, cultures, values, and beliefs. Anyway, after that, we do have a short clip from Jimmy Dore. We'll cut out the redundancies. This is where it's the title. I'm going to read the title straight from him so I don't misquote it. Jewish columnist admits Jews buy American elections. I don't know what he's talking about, but hopefully he will be able to elucidate that for our edification. Then we'll go to broken points because it's past tense. They already broke the points. Tucker stuns Israel TV. You are not a democracy. Interesting claim. I'm interested to see what kind of evidence he might have to back up that declarative sentence, which seems a little incendiary, unless justified and reflective of the truth. And it would be so we'll have to weigh it and see if we can come to a conclusion. The block is loaded. Thank you, Colby. Let's go. And let's go see Kim Iverson first.
Day for America First. Thomas Massey has lost his primary race. Some are gloating, saying the anti-Semites have been beaten, that Jew hate was on the ballot, and this election exposed the truth. Here's AIPAC saying congratulations to U.S. Navy SEAL Ed Galrain for defeating anti-Israel incumbent Thomas Massey. Pro-Israel Americans are proud to back candidates who support a strong alliance and help defeat those who work to undermine it. Being pro-Israel is good policy and good politics, they say. This couldn't be further from reality. Thomas Massey's district has over 700,000 constituents. Allegedly, about 100,000 of them voted, most of them apparently over 65 years old. Defeating one of the true America First members of Congress using a massive amount of foreign interest money has only lit the match. More Americans are angry and more Americans are suspicious of Jews. I'm just going to come out and say it. If we act like this isn't happening, it doesn't mean it isn't, because it is. People are looking at the 2.5% of the population and seeing the massive amount of sway this group has over our politics and media. And after voting for America First, but instead very clearly getting Israel first, they're pissed, rightfully so. And they need to blame somebody. And who else are they going to blame but the 2.5% of the population that benefits while the 97.5% gets screwed? And here's AIPAC, a lobby specifically for the interests of a foreign country, no matter how much they try to say the word American, bragging about it. Here they are saying pro-Israel Americans are proud to help defeat anti-Israel candidates. Being pro-Israel is good policy and good politics, they say. And here's a group of journalists celebrating the role Jewish money is specifically what they say, which represents 2.5% of the population, which they also say, bragging about defeating Thomas Massey.
I think it is a good thing if Massey and the people like him and others believe that if you cross the line into anti-Semitism, Jews are going to use the power that we have openly to go for you. Because what other recourse is there? Are we just going to sit here and take it, beg for scraps, hope that nice people are nice to us? The Democratic Party is going explicitly anti-Semitic. We can see it happening. People are getting benefits, as Seth says, for being and in my view, and I'm going to put it blank, that is Jewish money. There is an enormous amount of Jewish money in politics, by which I mean Jewish donors, wildly disproportionate, not only charitably, but politically. When I say charitably, I mean nobody really knows the numbers. Jews make up 2% of the population. According to some studies, Jews make up 20% of the charitable contributions made in the United States annually. That is a tenfold, think about that. Think about the disproportion of that. And in politics, it's pretty close also. And if that money isn't used, why do people give money? Because they want to influence elections to get people elected who reflect their views. Well, this is an existential issue for Jews. And the Jews who explicitly give money because they want to make it clear to anti-Semitic candidates that they are going to have to go through a buzzsaw and that they are not going to simply waltz in and be, if they're treated with kid gloves by the New York Times, we are double time going to do what we can to expose who they are, to find out what we can find out about them that will harm them, and that we will do what we can to prevent them from taking office. What other choice does American Jewry have?
And when he says anti-Semitism and anti-Semites, let's be very clear. When he says that anti-Semitism has taken over the Democratic Party, what he really means is anti-Israel sentiment, anti-Zionism. People no longer like Israel. People no longer want to support Israel. People no longer want to support Zionism. They think Zionism is akin to Nazism, and it is. And yet, if you say that, if you stand up against it, if you actually use your voice and say, I am not for the killing of children just because you want to have land that you think God promised you 3,000 years ago, if you say that, you're labeled an anti-Semite. And now this group of journalists are out there saying that they're happy that 2.5% of the population is able to thwart the will of the other 97.5%, probably less than that because you got to count, of course, there's a lot of Christian Zionists that are out there, but they're certainly not the majority of the country. The majority of the country is against Israel. The majority of the country is anti-Zionist. The majority of the country does not support this. And yet the minority of the country gets to control the majority because they outspend. Have you noticed how the billionaire class always does this?
Look around your room. The books you love, the movies that shaped you, all those tiny little sentimental things that scream, this is me. Now imagine someone walks in, swaps it all out for old dirty Harold's dusty old junk. Same house, but completely different soul. That's exactly what Christopher Nolan just did to the Odyssey. He took the West's oldest surviving story, the blueprint of what it means to be a man, to fall, to fight, to crawl through hell and still find your way home, and he swapped it for a Marvel trailer with togas and a modern day message. I can't tell you how much I would love to see the comeback of historical epics. You know, swords and sandals, kings and conquerors, great battles, man-eating monsters, the men who defied the gods and those who crossed the oceans for the women they wanted to die for. Those are my favorite stories. Nolan was my favorite director. Until he got Batman and Spider-Man, put them in togas and started having them trading daddy issues like it was open mic night at the Suitor support group. Just listen to how they talk now. 3,000 years of epic poetry boiled down to two dudes sounding like they're rushing a frat.
You're pining for a daddy you didn't even know, like some sniveling bastard. My dad is coming home.
That's not Homer. That's Hollywood pretending to sound like your group chat. And just in case you think it sounds familiar, it should. Because once you hear it, there's no way you can unhear it.
Wake up, Daddy's home.
He may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy.
You see that? Different world, but it's the same script, same voice. That's not adaptation, not even evolution. That is full-on replacement. And the dialogue? Oh, folks, all those daddies, just the appetizer. You better get ready to hear words like pep talk, show off, sweetheart, and kebab. About 2,000 years before the word was invented. And that's all before Menelaus asked Helen of Troy to pass him the Trader Joe's tote bag full of organic olives and gluten-free spanakopita. I'm serious. Look at my face. Not joking. So why does Hollywood only rewrite history in one direction? Why does every ancient myth, every hero, every great civilization eventually get dragged through the modern day filter? I mean, sure, the Cyclops looks cool. You got these really big explosions. John Bernthal screams at somebody covered in dirt and testosterone. Hollywood, by the way, calls that character development. You got a giant horse. It's all shot in 70 millimeter IMAX, no green screens. Great stuff. But look closer. 5 shooting locations. They all look like the same gray Netflix parking lot. Viking Uber boats, they're rented out, standing in for Greek triremes. A full plate armor, straight out of Comic-Con's King Arthur's sexy starter pack. And you got the cast, half of which the editor didn't even show in the trailer. Is the studio ashamed or just afraid of more audience backlash? We'll get to that juicy bite in a bit. Because the real reason the Odyssey now feels like Tenant Greek Boogaloo is because it's buried underneath all the smoke machines. Simple. Christopher Nolan fell in love with Dr. Emily Wilson's translations of the Odyssey. That's it. Not Homer's original text, not the 60 legendary translations before it, not the mythic language that helped it survive for millennia. No. Nolan chose the one translation written through a 21st century lens. All the modern language, the modern framing, all the modern marital therapy speak baked right into the bones of it. You want to hear all the Dear Daddy dialogue? It's right there in the book. You want to get all that Marvel frat boy energy? Right there. You want to hear words like cornrows, hobos, and canopies? She's got you covered. So it's starting to make sense now? This isn't a reinterpretation. It's a reimagining. Yeah, there's that word again.
I used to have, I think, a simpler idea about how much it's about a father and a son and a heteronormative patriarchal marriage. And
been shocked to realize how much there are visible misogynies on the part that are not just from one or other translator, but multiple translators.
And there it is. Not Homer preserved, Homer performed. And that's the pattern that really stands out here. They didn't honor heroism, didn't uphold the ancient myths. They reimagined it. Same house, completely different soup. And I get what the good doctor was trying to do. She wanted to leave her thumbprint on culture, wanted to make Homer accessible to modern masses. Noble indeed, but destructive in delivery. You want to lift people up? You want them to read the classics? Great, go for it. You make them earn their stripes, like forging a sword. You make them strong. You make them sharp. You don't dumb it down into a Marvel movie with Manhattan messages. One path creates critical thinkers and wiser human beings. The other just gives you a headache and a heartburn. And tragically, that's the path that Nolan chose. All the grand poetic language flattened, the ancient ideals reframed through contemporary values, all the mythic heroism reformatted to fit today's headlines. That's his blueprint that he's worked on for over 20 years, to have Odysseus and his men relocate ancient Greece somewhere between a Brooklyn bus stop and a Bud Light boardroom. Brother, I can't tell you how heartbreaking this is. I used to be in awe of Nolan. Now it's just Robert Eggers alone. Because what Nolan did, that's just pure arson. So the Odyssey isn't just some epic myth. It is a map home, and Hollywood just burned that map. And that means that the next generation to come along won't only just get lost trying to find their way home, they won't know what home is. I guess Nolan was right after all.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
The man who made us believe in heroes again just took a flamethrower to the greatest hero's journey ever told. Why? So he could rebuild it in his own image. Nolan and Dr. Emily Wilson didn't update the Odyssey. They rewrote the past to reimagine the present. Also, Hollywood could control the future. And they made damn sure that the casting director got the new gospel.
I'm sure everyone has been asking about the Odyssey.
Mr. Nolan is very, Chris is very he's just a master of detail, and I cannot wait for people to see this movie. Like it really is. It's going to be sort of epic in a different sort of way.
Oh, it's going to be different, all right. But before anyone tries to turn this into a simple cage match about race, relax. That's the internet food fight Hollywood wants us trapped in, to keep us blind and divided. The real issues are much older, much deeper. Something beautiful just got modernized into something smaller. This is about storytelling, about memory, who controls it and who gets remembered. Because if you take one of the oldest myths in the Western world, a brutal, bloody, horny epic about gods acting like jealous alcoholics and a crafty bastard sailing around the Mediterranean, lying, seducing goddesses, and slaughtering men like it's Tuesday, and then you hand Christopher Nolan one of his biggest budgets in his career, and somehow you got the marketing geniuses over at the studio suddenly want to get very selective with what the audience knows. That's a problem. And they're telling it to you right to your face. They didn't even trust the actors with the casting list.
We ended up doing the Odyssey, which was totally the most secret casting in the world. So we didn't even say it to each other when we got cast.
Oh, really?
There's usually a reason studios get this secretive, especially when half the audience lives online. Just go ahead, take a look at some of the key casts that they kept hidden from the public. You got Zendaya, she's playing the goddess Athena. Travis Scott, a blind bard, Lupita Nyong'o, the Helen of Troy, and her sister. And now, as it's being reported all over the world, supposedly, Achilles, the greatest warrior of the Western world for 3,000 years, is going to be replaced by someone who looks like they would get winded taking a grocery bag up a flight of stairs. Yeah. At this point, Odysseus' crew looks less like the Bronze Age and more like the world's most expensive airport lounge. And Nolan keeps being asked, why? Why did you make this change? What's your thought process on this? Time magazine even interviewed him, and one of their questions was, why did you cast a rapper? I cast him because I wanted to nod towards the idea that this story has been handed down as oral poetry, which is analogous to rap. Translation, Hollywood took an ancient story rooted in a specific time, people, and culture, and they sandblasted all the specificity out of it just to make sure no one was left out of the focus group. But here's the thing. When it comes to fantasy, sci-fi, or superheroes, hire whoever can act. Samuel Jackson made Nick Fury iconic. Jason Momoa turned Aquaman from a punchline that talked to fish into a badass. Shawshank Redemption, they turned a redheaded Irishman into Morgan Freeman. And that's timeless, one of my favorite movies, because the soul of the story survived. But this civilizational myth, foundational Western poetry, the blueprint for manhood and homecoming, that's not just entertainment, that's inheritance. And now you have Christopher Nolan throwing Batman, Catwoman, and the Punisher into Homer's world, reciting Emily Wilson's plain language therapy speak. And you take something timeless and make it timely. And timely gets dated faster than a Disney reboot. This doesn't feel like the making of a masterpiece, but more like the launch of the next shared superhero universe. And here you thought that Nolan would never make another comic book movie.
I mean, even comic book culture, whether you're talking about Marvel or DC or all the rest, a lot of it comes pretty directly from the Homeric epics. And the thing about Homer is nobody knows if that was a person. You know, they don't know. I mean, Homer in a way is the sort of George Lucas maybe of his time.
So now Nolan is comparing Homer, the blind bard, the oral poet, to George Lucas. Great. That's pretty much like comparing the Sistine Chapel to Dave and Buster's with lore. But I get it now. I got it. Nolan is now imitating Nolan.
Cheers. 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 There you go.
The man who made us believe in movies again is now using myth itself to justify his next prestige blockbuster. It's like, see, my giant budgeted, non-linear Greek boat movie isn't just another franchise flick. It's the original franchise. I'm not cashing in. I'm continuing the tradition. The question is, why would Christopher Nolan, of all people, do this? He wants to make Homer relatable to modern audiences. The whole point of Homer is that it's not your life. Odysseus isn't some complicated guy with emotional baggage carrying Starbucks venti mocha to the next pickleball park. He is a psychotic genius who pretended to be insane to dodge a war and then spent the next 10 years proving that he was the most dangerous bastard on the sea. So maybe Christopher Nolan actually believes Emily Wilson's version is the Homer of all time. Maybe is that he finally won an Oscar and he wants to stay inside the Hollywood club, so he's got to follow their rules now. Or maybe Universal gave him the freedom to do whatever he wanted with Oppenheimer, and the Odyssey was the price he had to pay for it. Whatever the case, the result's the same. The map home just got burned.
Right. And that's my feeling. So you're making those choices all along because there is no way of documenting absolute objective truth. Yeah. We all know that. So
no objective truth. That's an interesting philosophy coming from the director who's rewriting one of the foundational mythologies of the Western world. You see, the Odyssey is not just some dusty old book that professors pretend to read in between tweeting about colonialism. It is a map. It's how civilizations teach young men how to get through hell, how to resist temptation, and how to return home wiser so they can put their worlds back together. That's why these stories survive for thousands of years. But Hollywood takes a look at myth and it treats it like a toddler does Legos. Mine now. Everything gets updated, modernized, emotionally moisturized, till half the culture is spiritually homeless. Hollywood's no longer adapting stories. They're editing cultural memory. That's the real story, not who's playing Helen of Troy, who's getting erased from history.
I have seen the Odyssey. It's tremendous. It's an incredible achievement. We had some fun conversations about it. I was fascinated by the Iliad and the Odyssey when I was younger, and had some fun conversations with Chris about where he's taking it. It's a spectacular film.
Good news. Christopher Nolan just told us the movie's spectacular. Great. Now we can relax and pack up and go home. You know, my last video was on HBO's Harry Potter series, and someone left me a comment. They're like, George, what's the point of this? It's a television show. It doesn't matter. We have war, bigger problems. All right, we have bigger problems, but they miss the bigger picture. See, books, movies, myths, they're dress rehearsal for bigger problems. They teach us what courage looks like when the gods are against us, what home actually means when we're separated from it, and how to hold on to ourselves and get through a storm without selling out. The fact is, if we can't share our favorite heroes anymore, share what we love with one another without treating each
Tucker Carlson causing problems over in Israel. What'd you think of your man's interview here?
Oh, I mean, I thought it was great. There was actually even a Haaretz a column that came out from an opinion column. He was like, that was the first time truth about Gaza has been spoken on Israeli television since October 7th. Somehow it was Tucker, apparently, that decided to do it. Here he was with the liberal host over there on Israeli Channel 13, where he basically stumped them multiple times, saying, it's pretty ironic for you to be calling Iran a terror regime when you just murdered thousands of innocent children in Gaza. Let's take a listen.
Well, I campaigned for Trump. I spoke at the Republican National Convention. I defended Trump for many years on Fox News. What happened was the war with Iran, which I don't believe serves the interests of the United States. I think it's destructive to the United States and to the world, but mostly to the United States. I'm an American. That's what I care about.
Do you generally believe Israel would try to harm you because of your opinion?
Do I believe Israel would try to harm me?
Yes.
I mean, of course, I don't know. I hope not. I don't want to be harmed.
Yeah.
But
so Israel is the most violent state in the world, even more than Iran? Are you serious?
No country, and I say this with sadness, but no country has boasted more about killing its political opponents than Israel, of course, about its assassination programs. The Prime Minister of Israel gave a golden pager to the President of the United States. I was there. It is never allowable, period, for any person to kill an innocent. You can't kill a child. The child did nothing wrong. It is always immoral to do that. You can say, well, I did it for this reason, but it doesn't make it right. It's always wrong. And civilized people understand that. That's what civilized people are. That's the definition of a civilized country. A country
agree with
that
you, but it seems like
right.
But it seems like when you speak about Israel as the most violent state in the world, you forget to mention that it is the most attacked state in the world from so many enemies, like any other country in the world. So if you don't put this equation together, it seems like we are doing it for fun or that we lost our morality. This is self-defense.
Well, Israel has definitely lost its morality. There's no question about that.
The United States would cave in to Iran terror regime that controls now also the Hormuz pathway and the terror ring that it created in the Middle East. Maybe it would be even worse for any citizens in the world, not only in Israel, but also in the United States. And this is exactly what Donald Trump said. He said that the United States would have been in danger. So you don't believe Donald Trump?
I don't believe Donald Trump. And I also think as an Israeli, you should pause before using the phrase terror regime, since you live in a country that just murdered thousands of children in Gaza. We should all pull back a little bit on the rhetoric like that. I'm not defending Iran, but I'm just saying
even the
the
fact that
terror
you want
regime,
me
it's a
to-
little hard to hear that from
but
an
even the
Israeli right
fact that
now,
you
I have
want
to
me-
say. The government of Iran's behavior is in some cases disgusting to me and immoral. But the behavior of the Israeli government in Gaza is disgusting and immoral. And of course, Israel's not a democracy in any sense. There are millions of people who live under Israeli control who cannot vote.
Woo! All right. Again, like Harat said, you do not hear that ever, period, in Israel. In fact, you're more likely to hear like dancing jigs about why every child in Gaza should be killed and why it makes them happy.
In the yoga class.
Yeah, in a yoga class or something about why doing yoga in a bomb shelter was the most traumatic experience of their life. That's more like
It's like a
what
free
you're
press
supposed to
essay,
have.
right?
No, like,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
I think it was.
How I discovered Nirvana in an Israeli bomb shelter. I've been almost certain to come from the free press at some time. That interview, I thought, was explosive. I think for how simply confronting them with like basic facts, like that point about democracy.
Right.
They don't even talk about that. It's like a hidden thing that manifests as a shadow or a ghost, where they call themselves democracy, and if you say it enough times, then they try to make it true. But when you point that out, you're like, there are millions of people under your control. They're like, it's like the compute goes wrong. Same with terror, calling them a terror state. So anyway, I loved it. I think everybody. The whole thing is available. It's 46 minutes long if you want to. Maybe we'll link in the description. But he also gave an opening monologue, which is kind of what inspires some of my thoughts about Massey when I was talking about earlier today that I listened to on my way in. And I was like, wow. I mean, it was profound in its sense of like betrayal from Donald Trump and kind of analyses of how we got here. And look, there are many criticisms of, he helped Trump. He campaigned for Trump, supported Trump. I get it. I did too. But the thing is that being on the other side of it now, it's like, how do you make sense of something like this? And I do think that, that monologue, these types of confrontations on Israeli television are a path to get there.
Yeah.
At least I hope so. At least I hope so.
No notes.
All right, Ryan, you've got a story for us. Let's hit it, my man.
I do indeed.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
That's good, because I was sliding in because I was like, I'll save you guys from Ryan. At least I could do tonight is save you guys from a Ryan Grimm story. Ryan does some good reporting, and I'll give him that.
There you go.
That's about it. That was saying, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything. I could say nice things about lots of people, and then I can also still make fun.
There you
do
go.
both.
Yeah, I mean, I was like I was appreciating some of his Epstein stuff, so it's like props there.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is like drop site, those places, they have kind of a limited focus. So what they're in focus with, they're good at, but slightly outside of that, it's all blurry. So I can, when their reporting reflects reality, I'm a fan. And if not, I dismiss as arbitrary and move on. I don't get upset.
There you go.
Find it a waste of time.
Nice. Yeah, there was a lot in there. I mean, Tucker, I'm still not quite sure what to make of Tucker, but he's saying all the right things. So it's like, that was pretty cool with that, pushing back on that Israeli guy. He was like, yeah, of course you've lost your morality. What are you even talking about? You don't even get to pretend. Like, how dare you? So it's like, that sentiment needs to be said. So good for him. Someone in his position to be, saying that, that's good. That's good. Even though, he is pretty much a CIA agent, but whatever, I guess. Cool. Awesome.
The APAC angle that has been overshadowing, like I said, it has nothing to do with that Trojan horse clip. I just had to get those things in there. People using other people as fronts for no good. Totally unrelated.
I should say, because it'd be nice to have you on Tucker someday. So I'll say allegedly a CIA agent.
You don't hold someone, you don't hold someone responsible for the sins of the father. So
yeah, sure.
I haven't seen evidence. I think according to the Putin interview, Tucker applied there, but I don't know if he got hired. And from understanding, I've read a lot of books on these agencies, and it seems like there are useful people to them that they let play their celebrity role out there. You might have a George Clooney type, right? Who might be very close, and or back in the day, a Bruce Willis type, right? Who's very close and plays them in the movies, and they need that certain accuracy and charisma, so that they bring him close. But I don't think they actually have to make Bruce Willis an agent of the CIA for him to be useful. I don't want to make fun of him either. I enjoyed his movies too much. Sure. But there's a lot of useful idiots and tools in the shed for those people, and I say they could probably do a better job if they just came out to play for Team America. Little freedom, justice, and not so much an international agency, because the CIA, if it's not controlled from inside the country, again, where do these things come from? Who installed the thing in our country? Oh, it's the MI6 installation through the Rockefeller family. Okay, that's interesting. It's also interesting. There was something tonight. Oh, Tesla. When we were talking about Tesla earlier, he died January 8th, 1943. That was during World War II. CIA doesn't come around until 1947. So aside from the FBI, maybe Secret Service, Office of Alien Property, because he's from outside the country, there might have been an intel, because I was thinking, who's the senior intel agency that would want to steal his safe and the trunk and all the stuff that's missing? MI6 was there. Huh. Trump's uncle was in charge of Tesla's research after Tesla died. Trump's uncle was also knighted by the Queen shortly thereafterwards. I recall, if I remember correctly from reading such things back in the day. So it is interesting that he got knighted and might have done some service to the empire of some sort. And then, his great nephew becomes president. Great nephew is like a technical term, not saying that Trump is a great nephew. He probably never even wrote to his uncle at MIT. But these are the morning conversations. Scott, let's go to you for where we could find you during the week. Then we'll go to Colby for thank yous before our last mega block compilation for tonight's endeavor.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you, Richard. Thank you, everybody. Let's see. So I'd say just rebunk.news is kind of the link tree. Follow me on Instagram at Free Frame Nashville. That's my business page. So if you guys want to see how a guy runs a business, a digital media marketing business, come hang out. And yeah, see you next week. Thank you.
Fantastic. Colby, over to you. How you doing? Smooth transitions tonight, bro. I really appreciated seeing that. I saw it live.
Colby, you crushed, bro.
Doing well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
doing what I can to make it smooth. We had a few thank yous tonight on Rumble. We had $50 from Now Please. Said open revolt against the oppressive machines and pedophiles. And then we had $10 from YT Rules 35. Says, do you think there will be a novum organum from these disclosures? Then we had one more, $20 from Lady to Blue. Appreciate GTW. Planting flowers tomorrow. We remember the fallen.
Happy Memorial Day to everybody. Novum Organum, new life. Who knows? We have yet to see evidence. We're still looking for intelligent life on this planet, honestly. And to the first person, now please. That was really generous and thoughtful. And yeah, I agree. I think there's a problem. And I think Massey was one of the few people willing to use his podium to stand up. And at least, like, we wouldn't have the Epstein list files, incomplete as they are, 3 million files still missing. But we know a lot more about the reality of that situation, which they used to say just 10 years ago that was a conspiracy theory, and Amy Robach had to shelf her interview because the Buckingham Palace was going to cut off connection with her news agency, okay? So as long as these people are running cover for the abuse of new people coming into this place, I think that only ill is going to come from that, and the people who are going to protect those people, they're going to find ill through natural consequences of how this world works. People find out, they don't like it too much, none, and then those places, they lose power. They lose their words. Like Trump's words are meaning so much less since he said what Epstein files. You're still talking about the Epstein files? You could watch his audience go. So maybe he shouldn't have campaigned on releasing the Epstein files. So those are my thoughts on that. my what, 4 a.m. thoughts, 3 a.m. thoughts. All right, so now here's what we got for our last block coming up. It's very exciting. This is another Israeli news clip for the evening. I know you thought you just saw the one clip for the week, but the Young Turks, they found another one. I think in this one, they're actually bragging about some of the abuse that people in the other clips probably denied tonight. So I want to put that on the record. Then we have a Jake Shields Fight Back podcast clip. And the thumbnail said 10 trillion given to Israel. And I clicked it because I said, surely it can't be that much. That's a lot of money. And we owe 40 trillion in the debt already. And like, how could we have? But when I heard how the numbers were being put together, if you do take into account certain factors, it does seem to be a lot of money, because we also have to pay for their allies artificially, Jordan and Egypt, to play nice with Israel in this situation that was artificially created after Nelson Rockefeller got blackmailed by the guy who started a little group called the Mossad. They were a singing group prior to the British invasion of the 60s. I think you'll find them in the Yardbirds aisle of the record store. After that, we have something from Mr. Quigley. The Synagogue of Satan conspiracy theory explained. So there's a conspiracy theory. Oftentimes, these are straw men that do not reflect reality, and they're put out there because there's something real to be hidden, and you might find some biblical passages that describe such things. And then we are going to it's like a 20 or 30 minute sample from The War Against Us All, Part 1, 2007, by a guy named, what's it say, Richard Grove. And in that documentary, you're going to learn about Nikola Tesla. You're going to learn a little bit about Joseph Newman and the principles of his energy machine, as it was known, 19 years ago at this point. And then last but not least, we have an APAC Money music video that was very thoughtfully composed, and it's human beings. It's not AI generated. So give a little shout out, and don't give it a whole lot of. Well, I mean, let me just say it this way: this guy's got some chutzpah, so throw him some shekels. That's what I'm saying. His YouTube handle is Rusty Uncaged. So with all that being said, thank you, Colby. Thank you, Scott. This has been a great night. Had a lot of fun. I hope you're watching the replay out there and you guys are having a good time. If you missed the live show tonight, Town Hall Tuesday night, 7 p.m., 10 p.m. Eastern time. In between there, we all have a good time. Come out and see, and you can become a member of Grand Theft World by clicking the community button in the upper right-hand corner. And you can also get your learning on, so you don't look like some of the people in the clips tonight. Go to getautonomy.info and check out the course of breakthrough actions. Consume all the free master classes, workshops, other things that we have out there, as you heard and will hear again. The critical thinking trifecta is what's hot this season. Get your critical thinking on, do the master class, learn to outgrow your status quo. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in and not dropping out. I'll see you next Sunday. And we have Rusty Uncaged to play us out. Peace.
With that in mind, let's talk a little bit about what you can hear if you're living in Israel and watching their entertainment and their news programs. So here's Hanok Milwitsky, who's a Likud member of the Knesset, basically shouting that everything is legitimate when he was asked if it's okay for IDF soldiers to use metal rods to anally rape Palestinian detainees. So this is going to be in Hebrew, and when we come back from the video, I'll go ahead and read you the transcription of it. Take a look.
תרלול הזה, שיש מי שבפרקליטות חושב שאפשר לבוא ולעצור חיילים על דברים שעושים למחבלי נוח'בה, לא נגמר. להמשיך כרגיל.
להכניס מקל לרקטום של בן אדם, זה לגיטימי?
כן, אם הוא נוח'בה, הכל לגיטימי לעשות לו.
אוקיי,
הכל.
מצוין.
הכל.
Okay, so the man that's challenging Hanok is MK Ahmed Tibi. For the audio listeners who are wondering what Hanok said, here's the transcription, okay? Quote, "The insanity that our country is having around this story is crazy, and we need to stop it. I think we need to set a personal example here. And I say now, and I call on my coalition friends to do the same." Okay, well, what is he calling for? "I will stand up and I will leave this place and I will not vote for anything until this story and this insanity that there is someone in the prosecutor's office who thinks that this is possible to come and arrest soldiers for things they are doing to the Qassam brigades, terrorists." So basically he argues that once he's challenged, you think it's okay to use the metal rods to rape detainees in these prisons? Here's what he says, quote, "Yes, if he is in the Qassam brigades, everything is legitimate, everything." That Palestinian man never stood trial for anything. There was no indication, there's no proof, there's no conviction that that guy was a terrorist, and he was gang raped by IDF soldiers, and it was all caught on surveillance, all of it. There are other examples too, especially on, and unsurprisingly on, Israel's Channel 14. Let's take a look at that.
הגעת עם נשק, הגעת עם כלב, מי זה הכלב הזה? הכלב הזה זה ג'אנגו, איתי בכל פעילות, איתי במילואים. ג'אנגו? היה בעזה. כלב גבעות, יש לומר. ככה אמא שלי קוראת לי אגב, ג'אנגו. כן, טיפל קצת בנוח'בות בסט תימן, עשה הרבה. אל תגיד דברים ש... בקיצור, אותו מג"ד.
So the host asks the soldier, the IDF soldier, about his dog, Django, and that the dog took care of some prisoners at the notorious Sid Timan prison, and that they did a lot, that the dogs did a lot. They're bragging about the dog rape on Channel 14. They're bragging about it. An IDF soldier is on Channel 14 in Israel freaking bragging about it. So I'd like to ask Netanyahu, who are you gonna sue, bitch? For defamation? You're gonna go after that IDF soldier for saying that the canines are used to take care of the Palestinians? Freaking monsters, man. Freaking monsters. And then they have the audacity to point to people like us and act like we're the bad guys? Oh, they're anti-Semitic. Are we? Or do we care about humanity? This has nothing to do with Judaism. This has to do with human decency. This has to do with Israel's crimes against humanity. That's what this has to do with. And even some comedians are, doing crowd work that involves poking fun at prison rape. Let's look at that example.
There are people who have done what? And what do you say? You are sitting in the dark. What is the absolute worst thing you've done to them? Come on now, come on. Make us blush just a little bit.
I exercise my right to remain silent.
That is really quite nice. I love it.
That is wonderful. The entire audience, those guilty of crimes against humanity, are all applauding. Wonderful. What else? And they regret it and say, oh, no, I've seen enough. We need to move on to other things. Do they apologize or something? What do I think? I don't know what you did. If his mouth is sealed and he can't speak, then he can just go, oh, no. I don't know what you did. Do they also choose, like, can you only with a broomstick? They're like asking him.
Yeah. Real funny. There's a sickness in the society there. That wasn't funny. That was just joking around about something that everyone seems to acknowledge is happening.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings.
He found that since 1951, America has given, of course, hundreds of billions of dollars to Israel. Yeah. But when you figure out compound interest from those decades, it adds up to
it flows into other things.
Right. Well, then you look at Jordan and the money that we've given to Jordan and Egypt to make that, to bribe them to play nice with Israel. If you look at just between Egypt, Jordan, and Israel, and you compound the interest from all that money going all the way back to 1951, it adds up to nearly $10 trillion in 2023
and you also
dollars.
can add in the wars. No, remember.
So then you add in the war on. So that's just aid to Israel. So that's just aid to Israel, Jordan, and Egypt adds up to about $10 trillion in 2023 dollars. Now, if you add in the war on terror, you're talking about a minimum $8 trillion more. Some estimates have it as high as 21 trillion it cost for the war on terror. So you can split the difference and say, maybe about perhaps 12 to 15 trillion for the war on terror, plus the 10 trillion aid to Israel, Jordan, and Egypt. You're talking about over $20 trillion that we have given to Israel.
Sounds a little anti-Semitic right there. You don't want to give all your money.
And so, we don't have money for America. Crumbling infrastructure, people are homeless, people don't have medical coverage, schools are falling apart.
The medical coverage is just, we've been conned into believing there's the communists to want some basic medical care. Every other industrialized country has either cheap, you can get it really cheap, or you can get free.
And that's not, and I'm not arguing for socialized medicine per se necessarily. That's a debate that can be had. But let's be in a position where we can have that debate intelligent. We can't have that debate now because we're 33 trillion in debt, and that's just that's just current debt. But if you look at the unfunded liabilities like Social Security and Medicaid, Medicare, these things that are supposed to be funded in perpetuity, and you account for those things the same way that an American business or corporation has to account for them, we're over $200 trillion in debt. So our country basically could be bankrupt already. And not only that, but our debt to GDP now has crossed over 100%. Now, meaning that our debt is now more than we generate in income per year.
Way we can pay. It's what it gets down. I think each tax-paying American owes $250,000. Think about that with interest.
Yeah.
You owe $250,000 with interest. That's not getting paid back, and people just
and they want to send more billions and billions of dollars to Israel to blow up Lebanon, to blow up Palestine, to create war against Iran. Why can't we be friends with Iran, Jake? Why do we have to hate them?
I know a bunch of
we don't have to be.
They've invited me. The reason I didn't go is because I knew they'd call me like a terrorist and stuff. They were trying to get me there before the war started. I knew they'd be like, "Oh, you're a terrorist," so I didn't go. But they're not our enemies. They don't hate Christ.
I'm not saying that we should all go and they should be our best friend, but certainly we should have a peaceful relationship with them and buy cheap oil. Why not?
Yeah, they don't do that. So we should hit something important before we wrap up. We should do a quick interview. You're being sued by the FBI. No one really knows about that.
Yeah, so Kash Patel, director of the FBI, has a law firm, or there's a law firm that represents him personally and represents his charitable foundation. And his girlfriend is suing me for defamation with that law firm. That law firm that represents him and his foundation, they're suing me for $5 million for defamation. Wow. And that lawsuit was filed back in October. It's similar to the one they filed against Elijah Schaefer
So a lot of
and
people know
Hal
about that
Serafin.
one, but they don't know about yours for some
Right.
reason.
Yeah, well, I don't have my own media platform. I basically just have my social media activism. And of course, as we talked about, I've been deboosted and demonetized and my reach has been limited. So it's hard to sort of get the message out. But yes, I'm being sued for $5 million.
A lot of money to find it. Is there a way you have to GoFundMe? People can donate?
Yes, if you go to my Twitter page, there's a link on my Twitter page that will take you to all my other donation links. But I have a Give, Send, Go. I have Buy Me a Coffee. I have, I have various other platforms. You can go find that and help contribute to my legal expenses, to help defray my legal expenses. And I do appreciate that, Jake, because really, obviously I'd rather that I not be the one taking these arrows. Obviously I wish it were somebody else, but it is me. And really it's an attack on free speech in my opinion, because it has a chilling effect on anybody on social media. Think about the precedent this will set, that if they're successful in suing me for writing journalistic tweets, that the chilling effect that will have on all of social media and the precedent that it will set.
Even if you because the cost they have lots of money.
It's a lot of money, Jake. I'm not going to name the number, but it's a lot of money. It's cost me a lot of money already. And so, I just ask people, look, I don't mind taking these arrows for free speech, but I would appreciate if people got behind me, and many people have there are many people that have donated and have gotten behind me, and I appreciate that.
I'll be sure to do that.
I appreciate that.
So it's like, I'll make sure,
and listen, it's hard times for everybody. So I understand if
things are
if
even $5, things like that. Cause things like me, I'm looking at, Dan, I just told Casey I'd donate to his.
Right.
I'm like, I got a lot of shit.
There's so many causes. There are a lot of causes.
Expensive. I have several employees now. Like your family to take care of. You start being like, fuck, dude, you got like a lot of.
And that's what it comes down to. Like a lot of people would love to help out, but they have to make a trade-off. Well, if I give you money, that's money that I can't give to my son's college fund, or whatever.
Sometimes just a small amount helps. Because if a lot of people give a small amount,
I have 300,000 followers or so, and if like even 10% of them gave $5 or $2, that would be great. But
that's a perfect example of how like easy it is. If everyone gave $1, then you're fine.
I'd be fine. But that's not the reality, and people have different priorities. So, but if you can, obviously I would appreciate
the fact of remembering to go on there, sign it. Like that's what I'm guilty. I've meant to donate before and I've just forgot.
No, absolutely.
Real quick, what is the suit? Isn't it something that's
so they've alleged
insane?
they've alleged that I've called her Mossad honeypot, which I didn't do. I never referred to her as Mossad or a honeypot. I didn't ask the question.
He's just such an attractive, stunning, charismatic, good-looking.
Look, there's I wrote some tweets, basically just doing journalism.
What girl wouldn't want Cash Patel?
Well, there's no accounting for taste, from as they say. But so whatever, more power to him. But
so much charisma on that guy.
Yeah. but so many people have called her a Mossad honeypot. I have not. I've not suggested it. I've not asked the question. I've not framed it as a question. I've not insinuated it, but I don't think that, and this is just an opinion. This is just an opinion based on the facts as I see them. I think that it wasn't certain. My tweets certainly haven't been positive fawning coverage of her either, and so I don't think she lied the sort of the negative or expose nature. And I think maybe, and again, it's just an opinion. Perhaps she holds me partially responsible for starting the rhetoric against her. So other people, tens of thousands of people on Twitter, have called her that. I have not. I don't endorse that. I don't believe it.
Her and Cash Patel both assured us that she's not a honeypot. Right. So I trust. Yeah. They're also going to look into Epstein files.
Right. So listen. Obviously, people can date who they want. They can be with who they want. But if you're going to be a public figure and you're going to date the director of the FBI, then I think that
opens you up for public scrutiny.
And
you'll
so,
probably win the case, but it's going to cost you probably a couple $100,000 to fight it. People don't understand how much these cases.
It's
cost.
lawfare. I'm being lawfared, and that's my opinion. Again, I think it's lawfare, and it's chilling. A lot of people's speech, and we just can't live in a country. I don't want to live in a country where everybody who questions a public figure gets sued into oblivion. Like that's just wrong. We can't
FBI
have
shouldn't
that.
be the enemy of the people. They're working for the pedophiles, the DOJ. They're looking at people like me and you trying to go after her instead of the Epstein clients. People are like molesting and rape, maybe worse with children. Like on a Zorro Ranch, there's like reports. Yeah, there's dead bodies out there. No search warrants.
But nobody's looking for them. And you've done great work on the Zorro Ranch. So nobody's looking for them.
All right, let's talk about the synagogue of Satan. Will somebody hit the spooky music, please?
Who or what is the synagogue of Satan?
Well, you see, the Bible teaches that there is the synagogue of Satan. They are the ones that control the media.
You are the synagogue of Satan, and you have wrapped your tentacles around the U.S. government.
Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, and I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley.
What if I told you that there's a secret cabal of powerful people controlling the planet?
The Rothschilds.
Committing false flag attacks against innocent civilians.
9/11.
All in service of an ancient demonic cult.
Bohemian Grove.
Offering blood sacrifices to bring about the Antichrist and the apocalypse.
Homosexual amphibians.
And what if I told you that this group is called the Synagogue of Satan?
Are you completely out of your fucking mind? What? What is happening right now?
I'm setting up the video.
No, I get that, but what is this Synagogue of Satan crap? Like, what are we doing after this? The Nazi base on the moon? And I mean, look at this thumbnail. What kind of brain rot YouTube clickbait bullshit is this thumbnail? What kind of a moron would click on something like that? Don't look at them. Look at me. This channel is supposed to be about vaguely serious socio-political commentary, right? Why would you think that I would want to do something about the Synagogue of Satan?
Well, because some people, not me mind you, but some people seem to think that this conspiracy is anti-Semitic.
Why didn't you just say that to begin with?
So you've probably heard people throwing around the term synagogue of Satan lately, and you're maybe a little curious about what all of that means. The synagogue of Satan is a shorthand for a conspiracy theory that says that there are a bunch of powerful people running around doing a bunch of evil shit and wearing the Jewish identity like a skin suit to protect themselves from criticism, which is a totally weird and unfounded thing that definitely doesn't have just an overwhelming amount of evidence to support it. For the uninitiated, for those of you that are not from a Christian background, allow me to very briefly explain the religious component of this idea. The phrase synagogue of Satan is actually a biblical reference. It appears exactly twice in the Bible, both times in the early chapters of the book of Revelation, so damn near the end of the book. Now, these chapters are a series of letters that were allegedly written by Jesus as transcribed by the Apostle John and were sent to a series of small Christian communities throughout Asia Minor during the early years of the church. And the verses read as follows, Revelation 2:9. And I know the blasphemy of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. And Revelation 3:9. Indeed, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not, but lie. Indeed, I will make them come and worship at your feet, and to know that I have loved you. Now, unfortunately, there's not really a whole lot of extra context provided about these verses. There's no indication of who these people actually were or what they did to deserve such an unfortunate designation as the synagogue of Satan. One interpretation, the more obvious one, is that these were non-ethnic Jews, so Jews that were not of the direct lineage of Abraham, but that had adopted Jewish culture and who falsely identified as Jews. Another possibility is that these were the Pharisees or some other old school religious leaders that followed Abrahamic law, maybe even the same ones that plotted to crucify Jesus, which is strengthened by the fact that Jesus called the Pharisees the children of the devil in John 8:44. Or maybe it was just a group of Jews who had started worshiping Moloch and sacrificing children again, because that is just a thing that the Israelites loved to do over and over again in the Old Testament. Yeah, it's totally weird that people think Jews are running around sacrificing children these days, given how many times they claim to have done it themselves in their own holy book. But the reality is that these two verses in Revelation are completely open to interpretation. Nobody actually knows exactly what they mean. And the interpretation that many people have settled on over the years is that there be fake Jews running around doing evil shit. People who are not of the Abrahamic bloodline, but who claim the Jewish identity and use it as a protection for some nefarious purposes. And who would believe in such a thing? Well, it turns out a whole hell of a lot of different people with very different and even mutually exclusive and contradictory belief systems. We're talking about white supremacists like former KKK leader David Duke, black nationalists like Louis Farrakhan, Arab nationalists like Palestinian Chairman Mahmoud Abbas, left-wing anti-Zionists like Sean King, black Hebrew Israelites as promoted by Kyrie Irving in 2022, and most recently, mainstream conservative commentators like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. All of these groups and individuals have their own particular flavor of the Synagogue of Satan conspiracy theory, but they all kind of boil down into two major categories. Number one, the genetic lineage argument, which just says that the Jews that are around today are not the actual bloodline descendants of Abraham. Or the more esoteric, spooky, satanic one that says that the people that are running around calling themselves Jews, whether they're Jews or not, are sacrificing children to Moloch in exchange for power and influence. And we will get to that one in a second. But first, I want to quickly address the genetic argument. The most popular version of the genetic argument is called the Khazar theory, or the Khazarian Mafia hypothesis, which proposes that modern Jews, and Ashkenazi Jews in particular, are actually the descendants of a multi-ethnic Turkish group called the Khazars, which converted to Judaism about 1,200 years ago in the 8th century. There's also the very controversial 2008 book, The Invention of Jewish People by Shlomo Sand, professor of history at Tel Aviv University, which argues that most modern Jews descended from converts to Judaism across the Middle East and Eastern Europe, rather than from a single displaced population. So where do I personally stand on the genetic lineage argument? Well, somewhere near the corner of Who Fucking Knows Street and Couldn't Give a Shit Boulevard. Look, I already did a whole video on why the idea of a distinct Jewish racial identity makes absolutely no sense, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that here. If you're interested in that topic, go check out that other video. I'll leave a link in the description. But in short, anyone of any race can convert and become fully Jewish, not just a member of the Judaic religion, but a full naturalized member of the Jewish ethnic community. But also, and perhaps more importantly, there is no direct, unadulterated, pure sample of Khazarian DNA, and there certainly isn't a sample of Abraham's DNA that we can compare to anyone alive today and say, oh yes, this person is a real Jew and that person is not a real Jew. That isn't a thing. So the whole genetic argument is a question that cannot possibly be proven, which makes it incredibly boring and stupid as far as I'm concerned. What is more interesting to me, and probably to you as well, is the other side of the conspiracy theory. The idea that there is a group of powerful people, maybe real Jews or maybe not, who are deliberately and strategically using the Jewish identity and especially the memory of the Holocaust to gain favor and power, to manipulate world events, and to shield themselves from criticism. And that version of the conspiracy actually has some legs to it because, man, Jewish people be doing some evil shit these days. I think it would be easier to dismiss the whole pedophilic Jewish cartel running the world and sacrificing children to Moloch thing if there weren't just a butt ton of examples of weird, creepy shit that people who claim the Jewish identity were up to these days. Whether they're actually Jewish or not, whether that distinction is meaningful or not, kind of doesn't matter to me anymore. Because in almost every example that I could think of to point to when it comes to the decay of Western civilization, from the banking cartels that are bankrupting our children with inescapable usury, to the degenerate cesspools of exploitation that are Hollywood and the pornography industries, to the perpetuation of endless, needless warfare and the killing of untold thousands of innocent children during my entire lifetime. In all of these things and more, there is a, let's say, disproportionate amount of Jewish representation. And especially considering how infinitesimally small of a percentage of the population they make up, I think that it is extremely unlikely that it ended up being that way by chance. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that everyone who calls themselves Jewish is evil, but what I am saying is that it's pretty clear that evil people have figured out that if they call themselves Jewish, it offers them certain advantages and protection. Because for the last 100 years, since World War II, the Jewish people have enjoyed a great deal of compassion and understanding worldwide. Hell, I mean, we even gave them an entire country for themselves that wasn't ours to give and was already full of people that were living there. Oopsie daisy. Well, I'm sure that'll work out just fine. But very recently and very rapidly, that global goodwill has begun to completely evaporate for very understandable reasons. I think the thing that brought this idea of a satanic Jewish cabal to the forefront for me and for a lot of other people was some combination of Gaza and Jeffrey Epstein. Many questions remain about Epstein, but two things in particular are crystal clear. Number one, that he was without a doubt an Israeli intelligence asset with extensive connections via Robert Maxwell and Ehud Barak. And number two, that this was not just pedophilia. Like, that alone would have been bad enough. But no, this went way further and way darker than that. Now, I don't know exactly how much of the nastier stuff in the Epstein files I'm allowed to show on YouTube, but suffice to say it's there. And if you're watching this video, you're probably already at least somewhat familiar with it. If you're not already aware, then I guess just be careful and be sure to monitor your mental health. Point being, it is entirely too easy to read satanic, occult, evil shit into the behavior and activities of this man. And this is just the stuff that they've shown us. The overwhelming majority of the Epstein files are still redacted because they've not released the photos or videos, which you would think would be the most important part. Imagine the kind of horrific stuff the government has decided we don't get access to. And with Epstein's direct connections to the Israeli government, which is an organization that seems hell-bent on murdering as many children as it can get away with and single-handedly driving the entire world into famine and war and misery and destruction, I think it's easy to see why so many people are using religious or spiritual terminology to describe current events. Evil, demonic, synagogue of Satan. But as tempting as it is to view the world through this supernatural lens, I think that it might be a coping mechanism for some, and something that we should be cautious about. Removing these things from the realm of human capacity and instead framing them as an epic struggle between the forces of good and evil, it can be a way to make it more digestible and comprehensible. Let me give you an example so that you know what I mean. By the way, I'm about to spoil the ever-loving bejesus out of the show Full Metal Alchemist. So if you've never seen it before and you think you might want to, you should, because it's pretty good. Go ahead and skip to this timestamp, okay? If you have already seen it, first of all, you're a fucking weeb, but feel free to carry on. Full Metal Alchemist is set in a universe where people are capable of performing superhuman feats of matter manipulation, the primary governing rule of which is the law of equivalent exchange. In order to get anything, you have to give up something of equal value. Eventually, someone figures out that you can sacrifice human lives in exchange for great power. This forbidden knowledge, held by the ruling class of a particular country, results in a nationwide conspiracy to engage in perpetual warfare against its surrounding neighbors. Not for the purpose of winning territory or settling disputes, but rather to sacrifice enough human lives through warfare in order to perform a massive blood ritual and achieve godlike power. Everything about this country, to include its creation, the shape of its borders, its foreign and domestic policies, everything about it has been engineered from the beginning for the purpose of engaging in mass human sacrifice. And what is the name of this evil, demonic, genocidal nation that instigates endless warfare and suffering? Why, Israel, of course. I'm telling you, once you see it, you can never unsee it. There's some part of me that kind of wants for Israel to be involved in some weird, creepy, demonic worship shit. Because at least in the Full Metal Alchemist universe, the killing is intelligible. It's part of a plan. It serves some kind of purpose, horrific though it may be. And the evil entity behind all of it is something real, something tangible, something that can be fought against. It's a story of good struggling against evil, human triumphing over non-human, which is so much more palatable than the situation we find ourselves in now. Because in our universe, if there is no supernatural entity, if there is no Satan or Baal or Moloch, that means it's just humans doing evil shit. It means it's just us. And it means that nobody's coming to save us. Everybody wants to believe that they're a good person, right? And not just a good person in their normal everyday life circumstances, but people probably want to believe that they would still be a good person under really horrific circumstances. What do you think that you would have done if you had been a normal, middle-aged, working-class German during World War II? Most people would like to believe that they would be one of the good guys, right? That they'd be hiding people in their attics or actively trying to undermine the government or something. But statistically speaking, that is extremely unlikely. Like, even if you weren't actively participating in the horrific war crimes that were happening all around you, you probably would have turned a blind eye to most of them. You probably would have gone along to get along, right? Social conformity is a powerful thing. We desperately want to fit into a tribe and not be an outcast. And this isn't me being mean. I'm not picking on you in particular. I'm just pointing out the fact that all human beings have within them the capacity to do great evil, or at the very least to turn a blind eye to evil that's being done around them. This is one of my favorite books about World War II. It's called Ordinary Men by Christopher Browning, and it follows the story of this one police battalion of ordinary middle-aged working-class men who were drafted into the German army, but for one reason or another were found to be ineligible for regular military duty. And so instead, in the late summer of 1942, they were ordered to carry out a series of mass executions, starting with 1,500 Jews in Józef, Poland. Now, I won't go into any graphic detail here, but suffice to say, it is stomach-churning. And not just what happens to the victims, which is horrific, but also the psychological changes that happen within the men that are doing the killing that slowly causes them to become numb to what they're doing. These men didn't start out as monsters, but they became monsters through the act of doing monstrous things.